Missouri Territory, 1853. The wind howls across the open prairie, carrying with it the first bitter kiss of winter. 6 weeks ago, the Wilson family joined the Palmer wagon train bound for Oregon, carrying little more than hope and the memory of a husband now buried in Springfield soil. Today, as the early November sky darkens with the promise of snow, Mary Wilson stands alone beside her broken wagon wheel, watching the dust of 20 departing wagons fade into the western horizon. They've left her behind with 3 hungry children and provisions that won't last a week. What Mary doesn't know is that eyes are watching from the ridge above, eyes that have seen this cruelty before, eyes that belong to a man the settlers call savage, but whose heart holds more honor than those who abandoned a mother and her children to the merciless plains. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Missouri Territory stretches vast and unforgiving in the waning months of 1853, a landscape of rolling hills and whispering grasses now turned golden and brittle by autumn's touch. Mary Wilson pulls her worn woolen shawl tighter around her shoulders, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon where the wagon train, her promised passage to a new life, has disappeared into the gathering dusk. The chill penetrates deeper than just her skin. It seeps into her bones, into her very soul. Her wagon lists awkwardly to one side, the broken wheel a splintered mess beyond her ability to repair. "Mama!" Emma's voice, small yet steady, cuts through the howling wind. At 10 years old, she's already learned to be the strong one, standing protectively beside her younger siblings. 8-year-old Joshua clutches his sister's hand, his face pale beneath his freckles. 5-year-old Grace, too young to fully comprehend their dire situation, tugs at Mary's skirt with a whimper. "Are they coming back?" Joshua asks, his eyes wide with a hope Mary cannot bear to extinguish. Mary smooths his sandy hair, forcing stability into her voice. "We need to make camp, children. It will be dark soon." She doesn't answer his question. She can't. The truth is too brutal to speak aloud, that Jeremiah Palmer, wagon master and self-proclaimed man of God, had declared her broken wheel a sign. "The Lord helps those who can help themselves," he'd pronounced to the assembled travelers, his voice carrying across the wagons. "We cannot risk the whole train for one widow who brings bad fortune. Winter comes early this year." The vote had been quick, the decision final. Only Martha Baker had protested, but her lone voice was silenced by Palmer's authority and the fears of the others. As Mary coaxes her frightened children toward the shelter of a nearby grove of cottonwoods, she doesn't notice the solitary figure watching from the distant ridge. Dakota stands motionless against the crimson sky, his buckskin clothing blending with the autumn landscape. His people have named him friend to all in their tongue, though the white settlers who encroach upon these lands would never think to learn such things. He observes the abandoned wagon, the small family huddled against the coming night, and remembers another time, another family torn apart by the callousness of men. Mary works with quiet determination, her hands cracked and raw as she arranges what meager shelter she can from the wagon canvas. Her mind races through calculations of their supplies, perhaps 5 days of food if they're careful. The nearest settlement might be 2 weeks' journey on foot, impossible with 3 young children. And winter's approach. She doesn't allow herself to weep. There will be time for tears later, if they survive this. For now, she must be mother, father, and protector to the 3 pairs of eyes that watch her every move for reassurance. "It'll be an adventure," she tells them with forced cheer as they huddle beneath the makeshift tent. "Like the stories your father used to tell." The mention of their father, Thomas Wilson, brings both comfort and sorrow. A good man, steady and kind, taken by fever just 2 months before their planned departure. Mary had chosen to continue their journey rather than remain in Springfield, a widow with mounting debts and 3 children to feed. Oregon promised land, opportunity, a fresh start. Now that dream seems as distant as the stars appearing in the darkening sky above. As night falls completely, the temperature drops dramatically. Mary tucks the children close, sharing body warmth beneath their blankets. Grace falls asleep quickly, exhaustion overcoming fear, but Emma remains watchful, her young shoulders already carrying the weight of responsibility beyond her years. "We'll die out here, won't we, Mama?" she whispers once Joshua has drifted off. Mary meets her daughter's gaze, seeing too much understanding in those young eyes. "We are Wilsons," she answers firmly, "and Wilsons never surrender." It's what Thomas would have said. The words ring hollow in Mary's ears, but Emma nods solemnly, accepting this article of faith. Miles away in the remaining wagons, Martha Baker lies awake, shame burning in her chest. The elderly woman stares at the canvas above her, hearing again the widow's quiet dignity as she'd accepted their abandonment without begging. Martha had offered to stay behind, but Mary had refused. "You'd only be 2 more mouths to feed," she'd said practically. "Your grandchildren need you in Oregon." Now Martha wonders what price those grandchildren will pay to be raised by a woman who abandoned a family to the wilderness. The night grows deeper. Mary drifts into uneasy sleep, her body curved protectively around her children. She doesn't see the shadow that moves silently around their camp, nor does she hear the soft footfalls that circle their perimeter before vanishing back into the darkness. Dawn breaks grey and threatening, the air heavy with the promise of snow. Mary wakes stiff and aching, her breath visible in the cold morning air. Her first conscious thought is of fire. They need warmth. She extracts herself carefully from the tangle of sleeping children and steps out to survey their situation in daylight. What she sees stops her heart mid-beat. Arranged neatly beside the broken wagon wheel are several pieces of wood, perfectly shaped to replace the shattered spokes. Nearby sits a small bundle wrapped in deerskin. Mary approaches cautiously, looking around for some sign of who might have left these gifts. The prairie stretches empty in all directions, offering no clues. With trembling fingers, she unwraps the bundle to find strips of dried meat, a small pouch of dried berries, and most precious of all, a flint striker, a survival kit left by unseen hands. Mary clutches these treasures to her chest, overwhelmed by this unexpected mercy. "Mama, what's that?" Emma has emerged from their shelter, hair tousled from sleep. Mary hesitates, unsure how to explain what she doesn't understand herself. "It seems we have a friend," she says finally. "Is it angels?" Joshua asks, appearing behind his sister, eyes wide with wonder. "Pa always said angels watch over good people." Mary smiles despite herself. "Perhaps," she allows, though her practical mind is already cataloguing other possibilities. A trapper, maybe, or a solitary homesteader. The idea that a native person might have helped them doesn't immediately occur to her. Like most settlers, she's been raised on stories that paint Indians as threats, not saviors. The morning passes in a flurry of activity. Mary, who watched her husband repair wagon wheels countless times during their journey from Ohio to Missouri, manages a serviceable repair with the provided wood. It won't hold forever, but it might get them to safety. The children gather what kindling they can, find, and soon a small fire crackles, driving back the worst of the chill. Mary cuts the dried meat into tiny portions, making the precious food last. As they eat their meager breakfast, she considers their options. Turning back toward Springfield seems wisest, though the journey would be long and dangerous. Following the wagon train is another possibility, But her pride rebels at the thought of facing those who abandoned them, and the trail will be increasingly difficult to follow if snow comes. Her deliberations are interrupted by a sound that freezes the blood in her veins. Wolves, their howls carrying across the open prairie. Not close yet, but the message is clear. They're being hunted. "Inside the wagon," Mary orders, her voice calm, but brooking no argument. The children scramble to obey as she hastily gathers their belongings. The repaired wheel might hold, but their single horse, already weakened by short rations, cannot pull the fully loaded wagon. Mary makes quick, brutal decisions about what to leave behind. The oak table Thomas crafted for their wedding, the heavy iron cookpot, books saved for the children's education. Anything not essential to immediate survival must stay. As she works, Mary feels the weight of unseen eyes. She pauses, straightening slowly, and turns in a complete circle, scanning the horizon. At first, she sees nothing. Then, a flash of movement near a distant stand of trees catches her attention. Mary shields, her eyes against the weak winter sun, straining to see. A man on horseback, too distant to make out clearly, observing them. As soon as she spots him, he disappears into the trees. Mary's heart races, friend or foe. The mysterious gifts suggest the former, but years of frontier living have taught her caution. She hurries to finish loading the wagon, keeping the children close. By mid-morning, they're ready to depart. The repaired wheel holds as they set off eastward, retracing their path toward the settlements. The going is painfully slow. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Their horse, a sturdy gelding named Samson, does his best, but progress is measured in yards rather than miles. Mary walks alongside, saving the animal's strength, while the children take turns riding in the wagon. The first snowflakes begin to fall around noon, small and tentative at first, then larger and more insistent. The wind picks up, driving the snow horizontally across the prairie. Within an hour, visibility has dropped dramatically. Mary keeps her eyes fixed on the trail, increasingly difficult to discern beneath the growing blanket of white. Emma walks silently beside her mother, her young face set with determination. Joshua sits in the wagon with Grace, telling her stories to keep her mind off the cold. Mary's admiration for her children's courage is tempered by gut-wrenching fear. They cannot survive long in these conditions. As afternoon fades toward evening, the snow becomes a full blizzard. Mary can barely see 10 feet ahead. They have no choice but to stop and shelter in place. She guides Samson toward a small depression in the ground that offers minimal protection from the wind and begins to establish camp with rapidly numbing fingers. The children help as best they can, though Grace is now crying softly from cold and hunger. The tent they erect is immediately buffeted by wind, threatening to collapse with each gust. The fire Mary struggles to build, sputters weakly. Against the onslaught of snow, their situation, dire before, now seems truly hopeless. As darkness falls completely, Mary gathers her children into the wagon, creating a nest of every blanket and piece of clothing they possess. She tells them stories of Oregon, of the farm they'll build, of springs filled with wildflowers and summers, rich with crops. Her voice remains steady, even as her mind calculates grim realities. They will not survive the night if the storm doesn't break. The children eventually drift into uneasy sleep, huddled together for warmth. Mary remains awake, listening to the howl of the wind and the increasingly audible howls of wolves, drawn closer by desperation and the scent of their weakness. She clutches Thomas's hunting knife in her frozen fingers, though she knows it would offer little protection against a determined pack. "Thomas," she whispers into the darkness, "I don't know what to do." For the first time since his death, Mary allows herself to feel the full weight of her aloneness, her inadequacy in the face of the wilderness's vastness. The storm rages on, shaking the wagon with each powerful gust. Mary closes her eyes, offering silent prayers for her children's survival, even if she herself should not. When she opens them again, she gasps in shock. A figure stands before the wagon, materialized like a spirit from the swirling snow, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in buckskins with a fur-lined cloak, his dark hair pulled back from a face, marked with a single painted line across the cheekbones. His eyes meet Mary's without wavering. Mary's first instinct is to brandish the knife, to place herself between this stranger and her sleeping children. Every story she's ever heard rushes through her mind, tales of savage attacks, of settlers scalped and worse. Her hand tightens on the knife handle. The man makes no threatening move. Instead, he slowly extends his empty hands, palms up. A universal gesture. I come in peace. Your wheel will not hold, he says in perfect accented English. The storm comes for 3 days. You will die here. Mary swallows hard, fighting twin impulses of fear and desperate hope. Who are you? I am called Takoda, he answers simply. Did you leave the supplies? The wood for the wheel? He inclines his head slightly, neither confirming nor denying. Then he gestures toward the east, the direction they've been traveling. That way lies only more storm. Your people are gone. My village lies there. He points west and slightly north. 2 hours ride, shelter, food, safety for your children. Mary hesitates, torn by impossible choices. Trust this stranger, this man from a people she's been taught to fear, or stay here and face certain death in the blizzard? As if sensing her thoughts, Takoda speaks again. I have a daughter. She would be like your oldest if she had lived. Something in his voice, a quiet grief carefully contained, reaches Mary in a way nothing else could. She recognizes the sound of loss, the universal language of a parent's love. Emma. Mary says softly, my daughter's name is Emma. Takoda nods once, accepting this small offering of trust. The wolves come closer. We must go now. Mary takes a deep breath, then nods. She wakes the children, who blink in confusion and fear at the sight of Takoda. Mary speaks with calm authority. This man is going to help us find shelter from the storm. We need to go with him now. Emma regards Takoda with wary assessment beyond her years. Joshua shrinks back slightly. Only little Grace, innocent of prejudice, offers a sleepy smile. Working quickly, Takoda helps them gather their most essential belongings. He produces a second horse, a painted mare, from somewhere in the swirling snow. Mary and the younger children will ride Samson. Emma will ride with Takoda on his horse. The wagon and most of their possessions must be abandoned to the prairie. Emma balks at first at the arrangement, but Mary gives her eldest daughter a speaking look. We need to trust him, Emma. Be brave. The girl straightens her shoulders and nods, allowing Takoda to lift her onto his horse. Mary secures Grace in front of her on Samson, with Joshua seated behind, arms wrapped tightly around his mother's waist. As they set off into the howling blizzard, Mary casts one last look at the wagon, their last physical connection to Thomas, to their past life, to everything familiar and safe. Then she turns her face forward, toward the unknown. Takoda leads them unerringly through the whiteout conditions, seemingly able to navigate by instinct alone. Mary can barely make out his form ahead of them, and she trusts Samson to follow. The other horse. The journey seems interminable, the cold penetrating every layer of clothing, until Mary fears her children will freeze before they reach shelter. Just when she thinks they cannot endure another moment, the storm's fury seems to lessen slightly. They've entered a sheltered valley, and ahead, Mary can make out the glow of fires. A village appears through the curtain of snow. Several dozen structures arranged in a circular pattern. Some permanent wooden buildings, others the traditional teepees she's seen in illustrations. Figures emerge from the shelters as they approach, voices calling out in a language Mary doesn't understand. Dakota responds, his deep voice carrying through the storm. The villagers hurry forward, helping Mary and the children dismount, leading them toward the largest of the wooden structures. Inside, blessed warmth envelops them. A fire burns in a central pit, its smoke rising through an opening in the roof. Several women approach immediately, speaking rapidly to Dakota before turning their attention to the frozen newcomers. Mary finds herself and her children being guided to sit near the fire, wrapped in soft fur blankets, handed steaming cups of some herbal tea. Joshua and Grace accept this treatment with exhausted relief, but Emma remains tense, watching every movement. With suspicious eyes, Mary herself feels oddly disconnected, as if this experience is happening to someone else. The abrupt transition from certain death to unexpected sanctuary has left her mind struggling to adjust. An elderly woman approaches, her face a map of wrinkles surrounding kind eyes. She speaks to Mary in halting English. Children cold, need dry clothes. She gestures to several younger women who step forward with small garments, simply made but clean and warm. Mary hesitates only briefly before helping her children change into the offered clothing. Their own things are soaked through from the snow and would only prolong their misery. As Grace is being helped into a small buckskin dress by one of the women, who smiles and makes silly faces to coax giggles from the tired child, Mary finds herself fighting back tears. These people owe them nothing, less than nothing. Mary is painfully aware of how her own kind have treated the native inhabitants of these lands. Yet here they are, offering warmth, shelter, food and kindness to strangers who arrived in the night. Dakota has disappeared, presumably to see to the horses. Mary finds herself watching the entrance, waiting for his return with an intensity that surprises her. When he finally reappears, stomping snow from his boots, their eyes meet across the fire-lit space. Mary inclines her head slightly, a gesture of gratitude, of acknowledgement. Dakota returns the nod before turning to speak with several men who have gathered near the entrance. A young woman approaches with bowls of stew, rich with game meat, and unfamiliar roots and herbs. The children fall upon the food with ravenous enthusiasm. Mary eats more slowly, savoring each bite, feeling strength return to her frozen limbs. She observes the activity around them, noting the organized efficiency of the community. The easy way responsibilities seem to be shared without need for direction. After they've eaten, sleeping furs are arranged in a corner of the large communal dwelling. Grace falls asleep almost immediately, with Joshua not far behind. Emma fights her exhaustion, determined to maintain her vigilance. "Sleep, Emma," Mary tells her gently. "We're safe here." "How do you know?" Emma whispers back, her voice betraying her fatigue despite her efforts. Mary considers the question seriously. "He could have left us to die," she says finally. "Many would have. Instead, he risked himself to save us. That tells me what kind of man he is." Emma's eyes drift toward Dakota, who sits with the village elders across the fire. "The stories people tell about Indians, are they wrong?" Mary sighs, feeling the weight of her own prejudices and limited understanding. "I think, perhaps, they tell only one side of a much larger story. Sleep now. Tomorrow is time enough for questions." Finally, Emma surrenders to exhaustion, curling protectively around her younger siblings. Mary remains awake a while longer, watching the fires dance, listening to the storm's continued assault outside the sturdy walls that shelter them. Across the space, she occasionally catches Dakota's glance in her direction, checking on her and the children with unobtrusive vigilance. In this moment of reprieve between disaster and uncertain future, Mary allows herself to acknowledge the truth Without this man, this savage whom she'd been taught to fear, she and her children would now be frozen corpses on the prairie, food for the wolves, whose howls can still be heard, distant but persistent, beyond the village boundaries. The simple fact of their survival feels like a miracle, one granted not by the God invoked by Jeremiah Palmer as he abandoned them, but by a man whose name she hadn't known until hours ago. As sleep finally claims her, Mary's last thought is, a question that will linger in the days to come. What other truths has she been blind to, and what else might she learn in this unexpected sanctuary? The storm continues to rage outside, but here, wrapped in borrowed furs and surrounded by unexpected kindness, the Wilson family sleeps in safety, their journey taking a turn none could have foreseen when they joined the wagon train all those weeks ago. And Takoda, watching over these strangers he's brought into his people's midst, thinks of the vision that came to him 3 nights past, of children lost in snow, of a mother's courage, of bridges built between worlds through simple acts of humanity. The path ahead remains uncertain, the winter long, the challenges many. But for tonight at least, mercy has prevailed over abandonment, compassion over fear. It is enough. It is a beginning. Do you believe Mary and her children will choose to continue to Oregon when spring comes? Or might they find a new path entirely? And what of Takoda? What might his people gain or lose from this unexpected connection? Let us know what you think in the comments below. The village awakens before dawn, life stirring in the darkness like embers rekindling. Mary opens her eyes to unfamiliar sounds, soft voices speaking in Cherokee, the rhythmic scrape of stone against wood, the bubbling of cooking pots. For a moment, disorientation washes over her. Then memory returns. The abandonment, the blizzard, Takoda's appearance like some winter spirit materializing from the storm. Beside her, her children still sleep deeply, exhaustion having claimed them completely. Emma's arm is protectively draped over her younger siblings, even in slumber. Mary watches them breathe, each rise and fall of their small chests a miracle after yesterday's brush with death. The enormity of what might have happened, what would have happened without intervention, crashes over her. She presses a hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. The children sleep well. This is good. The voice, low and female, comes from behind her. Mary turns to find a middle-aged woman approaching with a steaming wooden cup. Her dark hair is streaked with silver, her face lined but kind. "I am Ayita," she says, offering the cup. "It will warm you." Mary accepts it gratefully, wrapping cold fingers around the rough vessel. The liquid inside smells of herbs, unfamiliar but not unpleasant. "Thank you," she says, then adds, "for everything. We would have died out there." Ayita nods simply, as if accepting this truth without need for elaboration. "Takoda saw you in a dream," she says matter-of-factly. "The spirits sometimes send him visions." Mary sips the herbal tea, unsure how to respond to this statement. Among her people, talk of visions and spirits would be dismissed as pagan superstition. But after a night when death seemed certain, followed by rescue that came like divine intervention, her certainties feel less absolute. "He lost his wife and daughter 5 winters ago," Ayita continues, her gaze moving to the sleeping children. "Sickness brought by traders. Many died. He has carried much grief." The information settles in Mary's chest like a stone. She remembers Takoda's words from the night before. "I have a daughter. She would be like your oldest if she had lived." Understanding blooms. His decision to help them wasn't merely compassion for strangers, but something deeper, more personal. "I lost my husband," Mary offers quietly. "Thomas. Fever took him before we left Springfield." Ayita meets her eyes. Between them passes a moment of recognition. the universal language of loss transcending their different worlds. The older woman nods once, then rises. "Come, you should eat. The storm will keep us all inside today." Mary follows, careful not to wake her children. The communal dwelling is already bustling with activity. Women tend cooking fires while men carve implements or repair equipment. Children dart between adults, engaged in some game involving polished stones and painted markings on a hide. What strikes Mary most is the sense of order, of cooperation without apparent command. Everyone seems to know their role without instruction. Near the central fire, village elders gather in quiet conversation. Among them sits Takoda, listening more than speaking, his profile sharp against the fire's glow. He looks up as Mary approaches, his expression unreadable. Ayita leads Mary to a cooking area where several women prepare food. They smile cautiously at her, curiosity evident in their glances. One offers a wooden bowl filled with a hearty stew, venison, mixed with unfamiliar grains and roots. The flavors are strange, but welcome to Mary's hungry body. "Osio," says a young woman hesitantly, the greeting accompanied by a shy smile. "Osio," Mary repeats, the unfamiliar syllables awkward on her tongue. The effort brings broader smiles from the women, a small bridge crossed. Outside, the storm howls with undiminished fury. Occasional gusts send snow swirling through the smoke. Whole, reminding everyone of the deadly cold beyond their shelter. Mary thinks of the wagon train, wondering if they've found adequate protection against this blizzard. A part of her hopes they haven't, that Jeremiah Palmer is facing the consequences of his callousness. She immediately regrets the thought, ashamed of her momentary vindictiveness. A small commotion near her sleeping area draws her attention. The children are awake. Joshua sitting up with wide, fearful eyes, while Grace clings to Emma, who stands protectively before her siblings, facing the curious Cherokee children who have gathered to inspect the newcomers. Mary hurries over, touching Emma's shoulder reassuringly. "It's all right," she tells them, keeping her voice steady and calm. "These people saved us from the storm. They've given us shelter and food." "They're Indians," Joshua whispers, his voice thick with the fears planted by frontier tales. "They're people," Mary corrects gently, "who chose to help strangers when others left us behind." She looks at the curious Cherokee children, then back to her own. "And I think they might like to know you." A small girl, perhaps Grace's age, steps forward with deliberate bravery and offers a carved wooden animal, a little horse, simply made but charming. Grace peeks out from behind Emma, curiosity overcoming fear. After a moment's hesitation, she reaches for the toy, her fingers brushing against the other girls as she accepts the gift. "Thank you," Mary says to the child, who beams at the acknowledgement. "Wado," Ayita supplies from nearby. "That is how we say thanks." "Wado," Grace repeats solemnly, clutching the wooden horse. The Cherokee girl smiles, then gestures for Grace to join the other children by the fire. Grace looks up at her mother questioningly. Mary hesitates, then nods. "Stay where I can see you," she cautions. Grace doesn't need to be told twice, eagerly following her new acquaintance toward the group of children. Joshua remains wary, but Emma's pragmatism asserts itself quickly. "We should help somehow," she declares, looking around at the busy dwelling. "We can't just take charity." Mary feels a surge of pride at her daughter's sense of dignity. "You're right. Let's see what we can do." The day passes in a blur of domestic activity. Despite initial awkwardness, Mary and Emma find ways to assist, preparing food, mending garments, tending the fires. Joshua eventually overcomes his reticence when an older boy shows him how to carve simple shapes from soft wood. Grace is immediately adopted by the younger children, her blonde hair a novelty they touch with gentle curiosity. Through it all, Mary is acutely aware of Dakota's occasional glance in their direction. He maintains a respectful distance, neither avoiding nor imposing his presence. Several times she considers approaching him directly to properly express her gratitude, but something, uncertainty perhaps, or the weight of their cultural divide holds her back. As evening approaches, the storm shows no sign of abating. Wind batters the dwelling, but inside, warmth and food create a cocoon of safety. After their meal, an elder begins to speak, his voice rising and falling in Cherokee cadences. Though Mary cannot understand the words, she recognizes the rhythms of storytelling. The children gather close, her own included, as Aita translates in softer sides. He tells of Kanati, the great hunter, and Selu, who brings forth corn, she explains. They are the first man and woman of our people. Mary listens, struck by the similarities to stories she knows, tales of creation, of harmony with nature, of lessons learned through trials. Her children's faces shine with interest as Aita translates each dramatic turn in the narrative. Even Joshua has abandoned his suspicion, enthralled by the elders' expressive gestures and dramatic pauses. When the story concludes, a young man takes up a flute, its haunting notes filling the space between conversation. Children begin to settle for sleep, the day's excitement giving way to drowsiness. Mary helps her own children prepare for bed, creating their sleeping space near the fire as they had the night before. As she tucks Grace in, the child whispers, "Mama, why did the wagon people leave us?" The question pierces Mary's heart. She smooths her daughter's hair, considering her answer carefully. "Sometimes people make bad choices when they're afraid," she says finally. "They were scared of the winter coming and thought only of themselves." Dakota wasn't scared, Grace observes with the simple clarity of childhood. "No," Mary agrees softly. "He wasn't." "Is he an angel?" Grace asks, echoing Joshua's question from the day before. Mary glances across the fire to where Dakota sits, with the elders. "No, sweetheart, he's a man who chose to be kind when others were not." Grace considers this, her small brow furrowing. "I like him," she decides, before her eyes flutter closed. "Sleep now," Mary whispers, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Emma, arranging her own sleeping space, speaks low enough that only her mother can hear. What happens when the storm ends? Where will we go? It's the question Mary has been avoiding all day. Their wagon is likely buried in snow by now, many of their possessions lost to the elements. The Oregon-bound wagon train is days ahead, even if she were willing to pursue them. Springfield lies weeks behind them. "We'll find our way," she answers, with more confidence than she feels. "Wilson's adapt," Emma nods, accepting this tenuous assurance. As the children settle into sleep, Mary remains by the fire, her mind churning with unanswered questions about their future. "Your children learn quickly," Dakota's voice interrupts her thoughts. He has approached silently, now standing nearby, his stance respectful but direct. The little one already knows Cherokee words for horse and water. "They're resilient," Mary acknowledges, gesturing for him to sit if he wishes. Children often are. Dakota settles across from her, the fire between them. For a moment, silence stretches, not uncomfortable but weighted with unspoken thoughts. "I have not had chance to properly thank you," Mary begins, the words inadequate for the enormity of what she owes this man. "You saved our lives." "It was necessary," he replies simply, as if rescuing abandoned settlers is an ordinary occurrence. Perhaps, Mary realizes, in the moral universe he inhabits, it is exactly that. Necessary, not exceptional. "Your people have shown us great kindness," she continues. "I don't know how we can repay such generosity." Dakota studies the fire. "There is no debt between those who share humanity." His English, Mary notices, is fluent but formal, likely learned from missionaries or traders. "My people believe all life is connected. To turn away one in need breaks the sacred hoop that binds us all." Mary considers his words, so unlike the calculating charity she's known in white settlements, where good deeds are often tallied and remembered for future collection. The wagon master, Jeremiah Palmer, called himself a Christian man, she says, unable to keep bitterness from her voice. He spoke of God's will when he left us to die. Dakota's expression darkens momentarily. I have known such men. They speak of their God's love while showing none themselves. He pokes the fire with a stick, sending sparks upward. Judge not their God by their actions. His wisdom surprises her, as does his tolerance. Where she might expect resentment toward white settlers and their religion, he offers nuance instead. When the storm passes, Dakota continues, what path will you choose? It's Emma's question again, but coming from him, it demands a more concrete answer. Mary sighs, looking toward her sleeping children. I don't know. Our wagon may be lost by now. Oregon was the dream, but... She trails off, the challenges seeming insurmountable. Why Oregon? He asks, genuine curiosity in his voice. Mary tries to articulate what had seemed so clear when Thomas was alive. Land, a fresh start. In Springfield, there were too many memories, too many debts. Thomas believed Oregon would give our children a chance at something better. Dakota nods, understanding evident in his expression. The desire to provide for children needs no translation. But now, Mary continues, I wonder if I was foolish to continue the journey after he died, if I risked too much on a dream that was never meant for me alone. Dreams are not foolish, Dakota says quietly. Even when the path to them changes, they sit in companionable silence for a while, each lost in private thoughts as the fire crackles between them. Around them, the village settles into nighttime rhythms, soft snores and whispered conversations creating a gentle backdrop to the storm's continued rage outside. Why did you help us? Mary asks finally, the question that has lingered in her mind since his appearance in the blizzard. You could have simply watched from a distance. Many would have. Dakota's gaze lifts from the fire to meet hers directly. 5 winters ago, my wife and daughter fell ill with the coughing sickness brought by traders. We sought help at the white settlement. They turned us away, fearing contagion. His voice remains steady, but Mary sees the old pain in his eyes. They died in the snow, half a day's journey from medicine that might have saved them. Mary's heart constricts at the tragedy, so matter-of-factly related. I'm so sorry, she whispers. He acknowledges her sympathy with a slight nod. I could not watch another child die in the snow when I had power to prevent it. To do so would dishonor their memory and break what remains of my spirit. His honesty humbles her. This rescue wasn't just compassion, it was redemption, a way to give meaning to his loss by preventing another. What were their names? She asks softly. Something shifts in Dakota's expression. Surprise, perhaps, that she would ask, or that she recognizes the importance of naming the dead. Galilahi, he says, the name carrying a tenderness that transcends language. My wife, and Aioli, my daughter. Beautiful names, Mary says. They were beautiful spirits, he responds simply. Another silence falls between them, but different. Now, a space of shared understanding. The wind continues its assault outside, but within the dwelling, something fragile is being constructed between two people from worlds that rarely meet in friendship. Rest, Dakota says eventually, rising to his feet. The storm speaks of at least another day before it releases us. Your children will need your strength. Mary nods, suddenly aware of her bone-deep exhaustion. Thank you, she says again. Inadequate but sincere. He pauses, looking down at her with an expression she cannot quite decipher. Sometimes, he says quietly, The path we begin is not the one we are meant to complete, but every step teaches if we have wisdom to learn. With that enigmatic observation, he moves away, leaving Mary to contemplate his words as she settles beside her children. Sleep claims her quickly, but her dreams are restless. Images of Thomas smiling from the Oregon homestead they'd planned, of wagon wheels breaking in endless snow, of Dakota standing at a crossroads, pointing toward an unknown horizon. She wakes several times in the night, reassured each time by the solid presence of her children beside her and the steady guardianship of the village around them. Morning brings no respite from the storm. If anything, it seems to have intensified overnight. The winds howl, now accompanied by the ominous creaking of trees, bending under the weight of snow and ice. The village adapts to another day of confinement with practiced ease, activities shifting to accommodate the extended isolation. Mary's children integrate further into village life. Grace shadows her new friend, soaking up Cherokee words like a sponge. Joshua cautiously joins the older boys in their games, his initial wariness giving way to curiosity. Emma, practical as always, convinces one of the women to teach her a more efficient method of mending tears in leather, a skill that will serve her well regardless of where their future leads. Mary herself spends the morning with Aita and several other women, learning to prepare unfamiliar foods and exchanging knowledge of medicinal plants. The language barrier creates moments of confusion and laughter, but underneath runs a current of mutual respect. These women may come from a different world than Mary's sewing circles in Springfield, but she recognizes in them the same resilience, intelligence, and care for community that binds women together across cultures. By midday, Mary notices a subtle change in the village atmosphere. The elders gather more frequently, conversations conducted in low, serious tones. Dakota moves between groups, his expression grave. Something beyond the storm concerns them. Aita, noticing Mary's observation, explains in her limited English. Hunters went out before storm. 5 men should have returned 2 days ago. Mary's stomach tightens with understanding. Somewhere in this deadly weather, 5 men are unaccounted for. Husbands, fathers, sons. The village's concern is palpable. Now that she recognizes its source, can anything be done? She asks, though she already knows the answer. No one could survive searching in these conditions. Aita shakes her head. Wait, pray. She touches the leather pouch that hangs at her waist, some talisman or medicine bundle. They are strong men, know the land. Perhaps they found shelter. The afternoon passes with growing tension. Children are kept occupied with stories and games, but the adults exchange worried glances as the day wanes with no improvement in the weather and no sign of the missing hunters. Mary finds herself joining the women in their quiet prayers, her Christian invocations mingling with their native spirituality in a unified hope for safe return. As evening approaches, a commotion near the entrance draws everyone's attention. Voices rise in excitement, then concern. Mary watches as several men rush to the door, Dakota among them. Snow swirls in as the entrance opens, along with a blast of frigid air. Through this temporary portal stumbles a figure, a man caked in snow and ice, barely conscious. 2 more follow behind him, supporting each other in hardly better condition. The village erupts into action. Women rush forward, with blankets and heated stones. Men clear space near the fire. Children are ushered back to give room for the emergency unfolding. 3 men, Aita murmurs, her face tight with concern. Where are the others? Mary doesn't need translation to understand the gravity of the situation. 3 have returned where 5 departed. The men are quickly stripped of frozen clothing, wrapped in furs, given hot drinks. Their hands and feet show the mottled discoloration of frostbite. One man's face bears a slash wound, partially frozen but still seeping blood when warmed, the mark of a predator's claw. Takoda kneels beside the most coherent of the hunters, speaking rapidly in Cherokee. The man responds in labored sentences, his voice weak but urgent. With each word, Takoda's expression grows more troubled. The village holds its collective breath, waiting. Finally, Takoda rises, addressing the gathered community. Though Mary cannot understand his words, the reaction is immediate. Gasps, murmurs, women pulling children closer. Ayita leans toward Mary. 2 men still missing. Cave system 3 valleys west. 1 injured before storm began. They tried to wait out weather, but food gone. These 3 came for help. Her voice drops lower. They were followed, mountain lion, hungry in the deep snow. Mary shudders, imagining the desperate journey through the blizzard with a predator stalking their trail. Will they send a rescue party? Ayita nods grimly. At first light, if storm lessens, the missing men will not survive another night without help. Mary watches as Takoda organizes preparations, supplies gathered, weapons checked, healing materials assembled. His authority is evident not in commands, but in the quiet respect others show his directions. This, she realizes, is leadership without domination, so different from Jeremiah Palmer's biblical pronouncements and arbitrary decisions. The evening meal is subdued, overshadowed by concern for the missing hunters and care for the returned men. Mary ensures her children are fed and settled, then finds herself drawn toward the planning group, where Takoda and several others map their rescue strategy using marked stones on a hide surface. She approaches hesitantly, aware she has no right to intrude, but driven by a growing sense of connection to this community's welfare. Takoda glances up as she nears, his expression questioning. "Is there anything we can do to help?" she asks. Simply, something shifts in his gaze, recognition perhaps of her genuine concern or appreciation for her willingness to contribute. He gestures for her to join the circle. "You have knowledge of treating frostbite?" he asks. Mary nods. "My husband was caught in a winter storm during our journey west from Ohio. I treated his hands and feet. We saved all but 2 toes." Takoda translates for the others, who regard her with new interest. An older man speaks rapidly, gesturing toward the injured hunters. "Natani asks if you would share your methods," Takoda explains. "Our healer uses snow and gradual warming, but always there is damage." "I can show what I know," Mary offers. Thomas said it was techniques he learned from a French trapper who survived many winters in the North Country. For the next hour, Mary works alongside the Cherokee healer, a gray-haired woman with knowing eyes and gentle hands. Despite their inability to speak directly, they develop a rhythm of demonstration and observation. Mary shows the technique Thomas had described: never direct heat, but gradual warming, special attention to circulation, herbal poultices to prevent putrefaction. The healer nods approvingly, adding her own knowledge. A bark extract that reduces pain, a root that helps fight infection. As they work together over the injured men, Mary is struck by the strangeness of her situation. A week ago, she would never have imagined herself sharing medical knowledge with a Cherokee healer, or caring so deeply about the fate of men whose language she cannot speak. Yet here she is, her world expanded in ways both uncomfortable and enlightening. Later, as the village finally settles towards sleep, Mary finds Takoda checking supplies for the morning rescue attempt. She approaches, carrying a small packet. "Healing salve," she explains, offering it to him. "For the men you find tomorrow." It helped Thomas greatly with pain. Takoda accepts the gift with a nod of thanks, tucking it into his supply pouch. "You should rest," he says. "Tomorrow may bring new challenges." Mary hesitates, then asks the question that has been growing in her mind since learning of the missing hunters. Will you be safe, tracking in these conditions with a mountain lion nearby? The question seems to surprise him, this concern for his welfare from a woman who barely knows him. I have tracked in worse, he says simply. Though they both know, this is not really an answer. The children and I owe you our lives, Mary says quietly. I would not wish to see you risk yours further on our behalf. Dakota's expression softens slightly. The rescue is not your burden to carry, and I do not go alone. Still, Mary persists, we will pray for your safe return. All of you. He studies her for a moment, as if seeing something new in her face. Your prayers are welcome, he says finally. Now rest. Dawn comes early. Mary nods, turning to rejoin her sleeping children. Before she goes, however, she pauses. Dakota, she says softly, thank you for seeing us as people worth saving, when others did not. Whatever happens after the storm passes, I will never forget that. He inclines his head slightly, acknowledgement without words. Mary returns to her children, settling beside them with a strange mixture of emotions. Concern for tomorrow's rescue, uncertainty about their future, and an unexpected sense of belonging in this place so far from everything she has known before. The night deepens, snow continues to fall, and throughout the village, people sleep with prayers in their hearts for those still lost in the merciless winter wilderness. Mary lies awake long after her children have drifted off, watching the fires. Glow cast shadows on the dwelling's walls. She thinks of Thomas, wondering what he would make of their current situation. Would he approve of her accepting help from the Cherokee? Would he understand the shifting of something fundamental within her worldview? She remembers his laugh, his open curiosity about those they encountered on their journeys. People are just people, Mary mine, he would say. Strip away the trappings, and we all bleed the same, love the same, grieve the same. Perhaps he would understand after all. With that comforting thought, she finally surrenders to sleep. Her last conscious awareness, the howl of the wind outside, and the steady breathing of her children beside her. Tomorrow will bring what it brings. Challenges, decisions, perhaps even dangers. But tonight they are safe, they are warm, and they are among people who chose compassion over abandonment. For now, that is enough. Dawn breaks with an eerie stillness. The howling wind that has been their constant companion for 2 days has finally ceased. Mary wakes to find Dakota and 6 other men already dressed in their warmest garments checking weapons and supplies. Today they will search for the missing hunters. Emma sits up beside Mary, her eyes immediately finding the rescue party. They're going out to look for the missing men, Mary explains quietly, not wanting to wake Joshua. And Grace. Will they find them? Emma asks, her voice small. Mary wishes she could offer certainty. They'll do everything possible, she says instead, the closest to truth she can manage. The rescue party works with quiet efficiency, wrapping dried meat and pemmican in hide pouches, securing extra moccasins, checking the bindings on their snowshoes. No wasted movements, no unnecessary conversation. The gravity of their task weighs on every action. Ayita approaches with steaming bowls, a corn porridge sweetened with dried berries. They need strength, she says, handing one to Mary. Give to Dakota. Mary nods, crossing the room to where he makes final preparations. He glances up as she approaches, his expression resolute. Ajita says, you need this, Mary says, offering the bowl. Dakota accepts it with a nod of thanks. The storm has cleared. Good hunting weather. And for mountain lions, Mary can't help, adding concern evident in her voice. A ghost of a smile touches his lips. We go prepared. He gestures to the weapons secured at his waist, a hunting knife, a tomahawk, and what appears to be a pistol. likely traded from white settlers. Mary is surprised by the presence of the firearm, though she realizes she shouldn't be. The Cherokee have been trading with Europeans for generations. Their isolation is by choice and necessity, not ignorance. "The salve," she reminds him, pointing to the small packet she'd given him the night before, "for frostbite." "Here," he confirms, patting a pouch at his hip. He studies her face for a moment. "Your concern is noted." It's not quite gratitude, not quite dismissal. An acknowledgement of her worry without encouraging it. Mary recognizes in him the same careful balance her husband maintained before dangerous undertakings, accepting care without burdening loved ones with his own fears. The thought pulls her up short. Dakota is not Thomas, not family, not even someone she knew a week ago. Yet his safety matters to her in a way that feels surprisingly personal. "Return safely," she says simply. He inclines his head slightly, then turns to join the others. The rescue party files out of the dwelling, adjusting to the brightness of sun on fresh snow. Mary watches from the doorway as they strap on snowshoes and begin their journey, soon becoming dark silhouettes against the blinding white landscape. Behind her, village life resumes its rhythm. With the storm's end, new activities become possible. Men clear paths between dwellings, shouting to each other as they discover snow depths exceeding their expectations. Women organize hunting parties for small game to supplement their winter stores. Children tumble into the newly fallen snow with excited squeals, their delight transcending cultural differences. Grace joins the Cherokee children without hesitation, her blonde hair a beacon against the snow, as they build structures and engage in games involving sliding down small hillocks on bark sleds. Joshua, still more reserved but increasingly comfortable, helps the older boys clear snow, mimicking their movements with earnest concentration. Emma, practical as always, assists Mary and the women in taking inventory of food supplies. The extended storm has depleted reserves more quickly than anticipated, making today's hunting and gathering crucial. Mary notes the careful planning, the absence of waste, the communal approach to resources. No family hoards, all share equally in plenty or scarcity. By midday, Mary finds herself working alongside 3 Cherokee women, preserving meat from rabbits the hunters have brought. Her hands move with practiced skill. She has prepared game since childhood, but she learns new methods from her companions. They use every part of the animal, from meat to organs to bones, turning necessity into an art form. "You have husbands, hens," observes an older woman named Eunice, whose English consists mostly of nouns strung together purposefully. "Strong, not afraid." Mary smiles at the compliment. "I grew up on a small farm in Ohio. My father believed daughters should learn to provide for themselves." Eunice nods approvingly. "Good father makes strong daughter." She gestures toward Emma, who scrapes a hide nearby. "Your girl, same spirit." "Yes," Mary agrees, watching Emma's methodical work. "Sometimes I think she's stronger than I am." Eunice makes a dismissive sound. "Children strong because mother strong. They see, they learn." She points to Mary's hands, still working steadily despite their conversation. "They learn this too." The simple wisdom resonates with Mary. She has worried constantly since Thomas's death about her adequacy as both mother and father to their children. Yet here is Eunice, seeing not her doubts, but her competence, her resilience. The afternoon stretches long, the winter sun already sinking toward the western mountains, though it's barely past 3 o'clock. Children are called in from their play, the day's hunting concluded. Still no sign of the rescue party. Mary tries not to watch the horizon, not to count the hours they've been gone, not to calculate how quickly darkness will fall. Instead, she focuses on teaching Emma a Cherokee technique for using sinew as thread, stronger and more water-resistant than cotton. Grace bursts in from outside, cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. "Mama, Kimmy showed me how to slide all the way from the big hill without falling." Her delight momentarily eclipses Mary's concern, bringing a genuine smile. "That's wonderful. Sweetheart, who is Kimmy?" "My friend," Grace says with childish conviction. "She says I can sleep in her family's dwelling tonight if I want to." Mary hesitates, touched by the invitation, but uncertain about separating their family. "That's very kind, but please, Mama," Grace pleads. Joshua is staying with Adahi to learn how to carve a bow. This is news to Mary. "Is he now?" As if summoned by his name, Joshua appears, more animated than she's seen him since Thomas's death. "Mother, Adahi's father says I have good hands for carving. He's going to teach me to make a real bow, small but strong enough to hunt squirrels." His eyes shine with excitement. Mary looks between her children, recognizing the importance of these connections they're forming. "I suppose one night wouldn't hurt if you're both certain." Grace whoops with joy, and even Joshua's face breaks into a rare smile. Mary feels a momentary pang. Her children finding joy in this place, so far from the life she and Thomas had planned, yet she cannot begrudge them this happiness after the trauma they've endured. "Remember your manners," she cautions, "and come find me if you need anything at all." Both children nod solemnly before running off to share the news with their new friends. Mary watches them go, a complex mixture of emotions churning within her. "They adapt quickly," Ayita observes, appearing beside her. "Children see truth before adults, no walls between hearts." Mary sighs. "They've lost so much. Their father, our home, our journey west. Now this unexpected detour." "Perhaps not detour," Ayita suggests gently. "Perhaps path." Before Mary can respond to this unsettling observation, a shout comes from outside. People rush toward the dwelling's entrance. Mary's heart leaps, the rescue party returning. She hurries outside with the others, scanning the approaching figures. 7 men left that morning. She counts 1, 2, 3. 7 returning. Relief floods through her. Then she notices they carry something between them. Travois laden with still forms. The rescue party trudges into the village center. Exhaustion, evident in every movement. They've found the missing hunters, but at what cost? Village women rush forward as the injured men are carefully lowered from the travois. Mary watches Takoda speak rapidly to the elders, his gestures conveying what his words cannot penetrate to where she stands. "Both men live," Ayita translates, noting Mary's concerned expression, but badly frozen, cave collapsed in storm, trapped. The injured hunters are carried inside, immediately surrounded by those with healing knowledge. Mary hesitates, then follows, aware that her experience with frostbite might prove useful. Inside, organized chaos reigns as the men are carefully undressed, assessed, treated. The injuries are severe. Blackened toes and fingertips, faces ravaged by wind and cold, one with a deep gash along his thigh, where it appears the mountain lion finally found its target. Mary works alongside the Cherokee healer, applying techniques she demonstrated the previous night. Together, they tend the worst cases, while others care for the returning rescue party, who themselves show signs of exhaustion and exposure. She is so absorbed in her work that she doesn't immediately notice Takoda watching her from across the room. When she finally glances up, their eyes meet briefly. In his, respect and something else she cannot name. He inclines his head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, before turning to confer with the village headman. Hours pass in intense focus. The injured men are stabilized, warmed, treated with poultices and tinctures. The one with the mountain lion wound develops a fever, causing particular concern. Mary recognizes the signs of infection beginning and suggests a strong yarrow tea, one of Thomas's trusted remedies. The Cherokee healer, whose name she learns is Galilani, considers the suggestion, then nods approval. They work together preparing. The bitter brew, communication transcending their language barrier through shared purpose. Night has fallen completely by the time Mary can rest. She checks on her children, finding both contentedly settled with their host families. Joshua proudly shows her the beginnings of his bow, while Grace chatters about Kimmy's family's stories and games. Returning to the main dwelling, Mary accepts a bowl of stew and settles near the fire, her body aching from the day's exertions. A presence beside her makes her look up, Dakota, similarly exhausted, lowering himself carefully to sit nearby. "The hunters will live," he says without preamble. "Because of your knowledge, they may even keep some fingers and toes." In his voice she hears genuine gratitude. "I only shared what I knew," Mary demurs. "Your healer's skills are remarkable. Galilani says you have healing hands, high praise from her." He stretches slightly, wincing at some hidden pain or stiffness. "You're injured," Mary observes. "A fall on the mountain, nothing serious." She studies him skeptically. "Your right side. Ribs." A flicker of surprise crosses his face. "You have sharp eyes." "I had a husband who would rather work through pain than admit injury," she says dryly. "Let me see." For a moment she thinks he'll refuse. Then, with a resigned sigh that reminds her forcefully of Thomas, he carefully lifts his buckskin shirt to reveal a large bruise spreading across his right ribcage. Mary assesses the injury with practiced eyes. Bruised, not broken, I think, but painful nonetheless. Without asking permission, she retrieves a salve from her small collection of belongings and returns to his side. This will help. If he's surprised by her directness, he doesn't show it. He sits motionless as she applies the salve with professional detachment. The bruise is extensive but superficial, a painful souvenir of the day's dangerous work. "The mountain lion?" she asks as she works. "We found its tracks. It followed the original hunting party, then stalked our rescue group." His expression darkens. "A hungry female, desperate in deep snow. We did not kill her. She has cubs somewhere who would starve without her. But we convinced her we were not suitable prey." Mary finishes applying the salve and sits back. "There, it should ease by morning." "My thanks." He readjusts his shirt, studying her with renewed interest. "You have many skills for one so young." Mary almost smiles at being called young. At 32, with 3 children and a lifetime of frontier hardship behind her, she often feels ancient. "Necessity teaches quickly," she says simply. They sit in companionable silence for a while, watching the fire. Around them, the village gradually settles for the night, the day's dramas giving way to exhausted sleep. "Your children seem happy here," Dakota observes eventually. "Yes," Mary acknowledges. "They've adapted more quickly than I expected." "And you?" he asks, his gaze direct. "Are you also adapting?" The question catches her off guard. "I'm grateful," she begins carefully. "Your people have shown extraordinary kindness to strangers who had no claim on your help." "That is not what I asked," he points out quietly. Mary looks into the fire, considering her answer. "I don't know what I'm adapting to," she admits finally. "This was never meant to be our path. Oregon was the plan, Thomas's dream for our family. A homestead, land of our own, a fresh start." "Dreams can change," Dakota suggests, "or transform." "Can they?" Mary asks, genuine uncertainty in her voice. "Or do we simply abandon them when they become too difficult?" She regrets the words. Immediately, fearing they might sound like criticism of his people or worse, ingratitude, but Dakota seems to take no offense. There is difference between abandoning a dream and recognizing when a different path offers what you truly seek, he says thoughtfully. What was at the heart of this Oregon dream? Land or something deeper? Mary considers the question seriously. What had Oregon represented to Thomas, to her? Security, she says finally, a place where our children could grow up without the constraints we faced, where they could build lives of their own choosing. Dakota nods. A worthy dream, but one that perhaps has many paths to fulfillment. His words unsettle her, suggesting possibilities she has not allowed herself to consider. Their life has followed a clear trajectory, Ohio to Springfield, Springfield to Oregon. Deviations were temporary setbacks, not alternative destinies. The storm will pass completely by tomorrow, Dakota continues, changing the subject. Once the snow hardens, travel becomes possible again. You're saying we should begin planning our departure, Mary interprets, a statement rather than a question. Dakota's expression remains neutral. I am saying choices will need to be made by you. The responsibility settles heavily on Mary's shoulders. What are her options? Continue west alone with 3 children, hoping to catch up to a wagon train that abandoned them, return east to Springfield, to debts and painful memories, or consider some third alternative she has yet to fully acknowledge. I need time, she says quietly. Time you have, Dakota assures her. No one will ask you to leave before you are ready. He rises carefully, mindful of his injured side. Rest now. Tomorrow brings its own concerns. Mary watches him move. Away, his words echoing in her mind. Tomorrow brings its own concerns. Indeed it would. Decisions that could alter the course of her family's future. She finds her sleeping space now eerily empty without her children's warm bodies beside her. The dwelling feels both foreign and familiar, a contradiction that mirrors her current state of mind. She is an outsider here, yet has been welcomed. Without reservation, her children are forming bonds that cross boundaries of language and culture, and she herself feels a growing connection to this place and its people that both comforts and confuses her. Sleep comes slowly, filled with dreams of crossroads and paths diverging through unfamiliar landscapes. Morning arrives crisp and clear, the sun transforming the snow-covered world into a dazzling spectacle. Mary emerges from the dwelling to find the village already busy with day's tasks. The injured hunters rest inside, but everyone else seems engaged in productive activity, clearing more snow, repairing storm damage, preparing for a communal hunt now that weather permits. Joshua and Grace find her quickly, bubbling with stories of their night away. Grace wears her hair in 2 small braids adorned with colored beads, a gift from Kimmy's mother. Joshua carries his partially completed bow with the reverence usually reserved for precious artifacts. Adahi's father says, I can hunt with them when my bow is finished, he announces, pride evident in his voice. He says, I have a good eye. Kimmy taught me 3 new words, Grace contributes, not to be outdone. Agaliha means sunshine, Gola is winter, and Agayutsa means little daughter. She beams at her linguistic accomplishment. Mary embraces them both, their excitement infectious. You've been busy, she observes, touched by how quickly they've found connections here. Emma approaches more sedately, carrying a basket of freshly gathered pine nuts. The women showed me how to extract them from the cones, she explains. It's tedious, but worthwhile. They're planning a feast tonight to celebrate the rescued hunters. Mary notices the they and we distinction in her children's language gradually blurring, a subtle but significant shift. They are moving from visitors to participants in village life with remarkable speed. Throughout the day, Mary finds herself watching her children interact with the Cherokee community. Joshua follows Adahi's father like a shadow, soaking up knowledge about woodcraft and hunting. Grace plays elaborate games with a growing circle of young friends, her laughter bright and uninhibited. Emma works alongside women twice her age, her practical nature finding satisfaction in tangible contributions to communal welfare. They are thriving here in ways Mary hasn't seen since before Thomas's illness. The realization brings both joy and uncertainty. How can she uproot them again so soon? Yet how can she abandon the future Thomas sacrificed so much to secure? As preparations for the evening feast progress, Mary seeks out Dakota, finding him instructing younger men in the repair of a damaged storehouse roof. He notices her approach and descends to meet her, his movements slightly stiff from yesterday's injury, but otherwise recovered. "May we speak?" she asks, privately. He nods, leading her away from the busy center toward the edge of the village, where they can converse without being overheard. The sun has begun its early winter descent, casting long blue shadows across the snow. "Your mind is troubled," he observes once they've stopped. Mary chooses her words carefully. "I need to understand our situation more clearly. The storm has passed. The immediate danger is over. What happens now?" Dakota considers her question. "Now you must decide your path forward. No one will force you to leave, nor will anyone insist you stay. The choice is yours." "And if we wish to continue west?" Mary asks. "To pursue the wagon train?" "Possible, but dangerous," he answers honestly. "Winter has just begun. The mountains ahead will be treacherous until spring, and the wagon train has many days' head start." Mary nods, having expected this assessment. "And returning east?" "Safer perhaps, but still challenging. We could provide escort to the nearest trading post, about a week's journey from here. From there, you could arrange passage to Springfield when conditions allow." Mary absorbs this information, then asks the question that has been forming in her mind since dawn. "And if we wish to remain here? Not permanently, perhaps, but through the winter?" Something flickers in Dakota's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or approval. "Our people have endured much at the hands of white settlers," he says carefully. "Treaties broken, lands taken, promises forgotten. Some among us harbor understandable distrust." Mary's heart sinks. Of course. Why would they welcome permanent white settlers among them, given the history? "But," Dakota continues, "you and your children have shown respect. You have contributed, not merely taken. The children especially have formed bonds of friendship." He pauses, then adds, "The village council would consider your request favorably, I believe, especially if you continue to share your healing knowledge with Galilani. Hope rises unexpectedly. You think they would allow us to stay? Until spring, certainly. Beyond that..." He spreads his hands, indicating complexity beyond simple answers. "Our future here is itself uncertain. The government speaks of relocations, new restrictions. We live in borrowed time on land that was once freely ours." The political realities intrude on Mary's considerations. She has heard of Indian removals in other territories, entire peoples forced westward to make room for white settlement. The injustice strikes her more personally now than when it was merely distant news. "I understand," she says quietly. "I wouldn't want to bring additional complications to your people." "Your presence is not a complication," Dakota corrects her. "It is a choice, yours and ours, perhaps even an opportunity for both." An opportunity. Few white settlers see Cherokee as people. We are obstacles, savages, or occasionally noble curiosities, but rarely simply human, with the same hopes and sorrows as any other. His gaze is direct, challenging. "Your children already see differently. Perhaps others could learn from their example." Mary considers his words thoughtfully. "My husband believed in judging people by their actions, not their origins. He would have been grateful beyond words for what you've done for his family." "Then he was an unusual man," Dakota observes, "and raised unusual children. They are quick to learn our ways, but retain their own strength." Pride warms Mary at his assessment. They are resilient, more so than I sometimes give them credit for. Like their mother, Dakota says, the compliment offered simply as observed fact. Mary feels color rise to her cheeks, unaccustomed to such direct praise. I'm still learning that resilience myself. Thomas was our family's strength. No, Dakota says firmly. He may have been its shelter, but you are its foundation. I have watched you these past days, how you care for your children, contribute to our community, adapt to unfamiliar circumstances. These are not the actions of a woman merely surviving her husband's absence. They are the actions of a woman with her own strength. His words settle deep within Mary, touching something long dormant. For months since Thomas's death, she has seen herself as merely maintaining what he built, preserving his legacy until they reached Oregon. The possibility that she might be creating something new, something distinctly her own, has not occurred to her until this moment. I need to speak with my children, she says finally. This decision affects them as much as me. Dakota nods in understanding. The feast begins at sunset, perhaps afterward. Yes, Mary agrees, and thank you for giving us this choice. Choices are sacred, he says simply. Too often they are denied to those who need them most. They walk back toward the village, center in companionable silence. As they approach, Mary notices her children engaged in preparations for the evening celebration. Emma helps arrange seating around the large outdoor fire pit, now cleared of snow. Joshua proudly carries armloads of firewood under Adahi's father's supervision. Grace weaves through the activity, distributing small pouches of pine nuts. Her blonde head bobbing among her darker-haired friends. They look happy. They look at home. The realization both comforts and unsettles Mary. Oregon has been their destination for so long that considering alternatives feels almost like betrayal of Thomas, of his dream, of the future they had planned together. Yet watching her children, now she wonders if holding too tightly to that original vision might deny them something equally valuable. As the sun touches the western mountains, the feast begins. The entire village gathers around the massive bonfire, its warmth pushing back the evening chill. The rescued hunters, still weak but recovering, are given places of honor. Food circulates abundantly. Venison, rabbit, wild turkey, supplemented with preserved vegetables, nuts and berries from winter stores. Mary and her children sit together, joined occasionally by their new friends. Grace practically vibrates with excitement, whispering translations of Cherokee phrases she's learned to her siblings. Joshua discusses hunting techniques with solemn intensity. Even Emma relaxes her usual vigilance, laughing at a young woman's animated story despite understanding only portions of it. After the meal, music begins. Drums establishing a heartbeat rhythm, flutes weaving melodies that seem to Mary both alien and oddly familiar, as if echoing some ancient memory. Dancers move into the fire-lit circle, their movements telling stories Mary cannot read, but instinctively appreciates. They celebrate life continuing through winter's darkness, Ayita explains, settling beside her. The return of lost hunters reminds us that even in coldest times, hope remains. Mary watches the dancers, struck by the ceremony's beauty and purpose. We don't have celebrations like this, she reflects, at least not in the same way. All people celebrate survival, Ayita observes wisely. Different songs, same joy. The festivities continue well into the evening. Eventually, younger children begin to fade, Grace among them. She curls against Mary's side, fighting sleep even as her eyelids droop. I think it's time we found our beds, Mary murmurs to Emma, who nods agreement. Joshua protests briefly, but acquiesces when Adahi himself admits exhaustion. They return to the main dwelling, now nearly empty with most villagers still at the celebration. Mary helps Grace into her sleeping furs, the child barely conscious enough to mumble goodnight. Joshua follows soon after, the day's excitement finally catching up with him. Emma, however, remains alert. She sits cross-legged on her sleeping mat, watching her mother with perceptive eyes. "You've been thinking about something all day," she observes quietly. "What is it?" Mary sometimes forgets how observant her eldest daughter is, how little escapes her notice. "I've been considering our options," she admits, sitting beside Emma, "and I wanted to discuss them with you and your siblings. But perhaps that conversation should wait until morning when everyone is more alert." "Joshua and Grace are sleeping," Emma points out practically. "But I'm awake. You can tell me now." Mary studies her daughter's face, so young still, yet carrying a maturity born of loss and responsibility. "We need to decide our next steps," she begins. "The storm has passed. Soon travel will be possible again." Emma nods, unsurprised. "Are we continuing to Oregon?" "That's one option," Mary confirms, though Dakota says the mountain crossing would be dangerous until spring. "We could go back to Springfield," Emma suggests, though without enthusiasm. "Also possible, though difficult in current conditions." Emma considers, her brow furrowed. In thought, then she looks up, a new idea dawning. "Or we could stay here for a while at least." The directness of the question momentarily startles Mary. "Would you want that?" she asks carefully. Emma doesn't answer immediately, weighing her response with characteristic thoroughness. "Joshua is happier here than I've seen him since Father died," she says finally, "and Grace has made real friends. They're learning useful skills." She pauses. "And you seem different here." "Different how?" Mary asks, genuinely curious about her daughter's perception. "Less worried," Emma says simply. "More like before Father got sick." She looks down at her hands. "I know you wanted to fulfill his wish of going to Oregon, but would Father want us to make a dangerous journey just to reach a specific place? Or would he want us to find somewhere safe where we could build a good life?" The wisdom in her young daughter's question brings tears to Mary's eyes. "When did you become so insightful?" she asks softly. Emma shrugs, embarrassed by the praise. "I just think about what Father used to say, that home isn't a place on a map. It's where your family is together and safe." Mary pulls her daughter into a tight embrace, overcome by the simple truth of Thomas's words echoed through their child. How had she forgotten that central principle that had guided their marriage? Perhaps in her grief, she had fixated on the destination rather than the purpose behind it. "So you would prefer to stay?" she asks, when she can trust her voice again. "For the winter at least," Emma confirms. "Then we can decide about Oregon when the weather improves. Maybe by then we'll know more clearly what's right for all of us." Mary marvels at her daughter's practical wisdom, a temporary decision, preserving their options while ensuring immediate safety. Why had she felt compelled to make a permanent choice immediately? "I think that's very sensible," she agrees. "We'll discuss it with Joshua and Grace in the morning, but I suspect they'll share your view." Emma smiles, relief evident in her expression. "Good, because I've just started learning to make proper moccasins, and I'd hate to leave before I finish." Mary laughs softly, reminded that despite her maturity, Emma is still very much a child with her own simple priorities. "Then by all means, we must stay at least until the moccasins are complete." They prepare for sleep then, the weight of immediate decision lifted from Mary's shoulders. Tomorrow, they will formalize their request to remain through winter, but tonight she can rest, knowing they have found their path forward, not abandoning Thomas's dream, but allowing it to evolve into something he would still recognize and approve. As she drifts towards sleep, Mary realizes that for the first time since Thomas's death, she is not merely surviving day to day, but actually planning for a future. A different future than they had envisioned together, certainly, but a future nonetheless. One With possibilities, she is finally ready to explore. Outside, the celebration continues, its distant music a gentle backdrop to her thoughts. The Cherokee are celebrating survival against winter's hardships. Perhaps in her own way, Mary is beginning to do the same. Winter settles over the Cherokee village like a patient predator. December yields to January, bringing shorter days and longer nights, temperatures that freeze breath mid-air, and snow that transforms the landscape into something alien and beautiful. Mary and her children have been with the tribe for nearly 2 months now, their temporary refuge gradually becoming something that feels increasingly like home. The Wilson family occupies a small dwelling of their own now, a gift from the community, after Mary helped save the leg of a young hunter who'd fallen through river ice. It's a simple structure, hastily assembled from available materials, but it offers privacy and a sense of independence that Mary hadn't realized she craved until it was provided. Emma has arranged their meager possessions with characteristic efficiency. The few items they salvaged from their wagon combined with gifts from the Cherokee. Brightly woven blankets cover sleeping pallets. Wooden utensils and clay pots line carefully constructed shelves. Joshua's growing collection of carved animals stands proudly on a small table he helped build. Grace's drawings, made with charcoal on bark, decorate the walls. It is humble but unmistakably theirs, a family space carved from adversity. This morning, Mary wakes before dawn, as has become her habit. The fire needs tending, water needs hauling from the stream, and there are always preparations for the day's work. She moves quietly, allowing her children a few more precious minutes of warmth and rest. Outside, the world glitters beneath a full moon. Fresh snow fell during the night, just enough to dust the previous layer with new brilliance. Mary takes a moment to absorb the silence, the immensity of stars overhead, the solitude that no longer frightens her as it once did. "You rise early, even on feast days," a voice observes from nearby. Mary turns to find Dakota approaching, carrying an armload of firewood. In the weeks since their decision to stay, their encounters have settled into something comfortable, not quite friendship, not quite something else, but marked by mutual respect and growing understanding. "Old habits," she explains with a slight smile. "On the farm, animals needed tending regardless of the calendar." Dakota nods, depositing his load beside her doorway, a small gesture of practical kindness she has come to expect from him. "The children are excited for the winter dance?" "Grace has talked of little else for days," Mary confirms. "Even Joshua seems eager, though he tries to hide it." "And Emma?" "Practical as always. She's more interested in the stories the elders will share afterward than the dancing itself." Dakota's expression softens. "She has an old soul, your Emma?" "Yes," Mary agrees, a mixture of pride and concern coloring her voice. "Sometimes I worry she carries too much weight for one so young." "Children become what circumstances require," Dakota observes. "But they remain children at heart if given space to remember it." Mary considers his words, wondering if the same might be true of adults. Has she allowed herself space to remember who she is beyond responsibilities and survival? "Will you join the dancing tonight?" Dakota asks, changing the subject. The question catches Mary by surprise. "I hadn't considered it," she admits. "I'm not familiar with the steps or meanings." The winter dance celebrates endurance, surviving the darkest days while looking toward returning light, Dakota explains. "I think you understand this meaning quite well." The observation strikes Mary with unexpected force. Indeed, what has her life been these past months but an exercise in endurance, in finding hope beyond darkness? "Perhaps I do," she acknowledges, softly, A comfortable silence settles between them, broken only by the distant call of a night bird. Mary has grown accustomed to these quiet exchanges, conversations that contain as much in the pauses as in the words themselves. "I should return to preparations," Dakota says eventually. "The hunting party leaves at first light." Mary nods, suddenly remembering. "Joshua mentioned you invited him to accompany you today." "If you approve," Dakota confirms. "He has shown skill with his bow and keen observation. It is time he witnessed a proper hunt." Mary hesitates briefly. Joshua is only 8, young for such an undertaking. Yet she's noticed his growing confidence under Dakota's occasional guidance, his pride in mastering new skills. "He would be disappointed to miss the evening celebrations," she points out. "We hunt nearby," Dakota assures her. "Small game only. We will return well before sunset." Mary considers, then nods her agreement. "He'll be thrilled." She pauses, then adds, "Thank you for taking interest in him. Since Thomas died, he's had few opportunities to learn from men." Dakota's expression remains neutral, but something flickers briefly in his eyes. Boys become men through example. Joshua deserves good examples. With that simple statement, he inclines his head in farewell and moves away through the pre-dawn darkness, leaving Mary to ponder the layers of meaning. In his words, inside their dwelling, she stirs the fire to new life and begins heating water for the morning meal. Emma wakes first, as always, silently joining her mother in preparations. Grace follows soon after, her usual exuberance muted by early morning drowsiness. Joshua is last, bleary-eyed, until Mary mentions Dakota's invitation. "Really?" he exclaims, suddenly fully alert. "I can go on the actual hunt?" "If you mind Dakota's instructions precisely," Mary stipulates, "and stay close to the group at all times." "I will!" Joshua promises fervently, already searching for his warmest clothing. "Do you think I might actually shoot something?" "Perhaps," Mary allows. "But remember, hunting isn't just about taking life. It's about understanding the forest, respecting the animals, providing for the community." Joshua nods solemnly, repeating lessons Dakota has clearly already instilled. "We only take what is needed. We use all that is taken. We give thanks for the gift of life that sustains life." Mary feels a momentary pang, hearing another man's teachings echoed in her son's voice. Then she reminds herself that Thomas would approve, would be grateful his son has found guidance in their unexpected circumstances. Breakfast is a hasty affair, Joshua too excited to eat properly. When a soft call comes from outside, the hunting party gathering, he practically bounds from the dwelling, turning at the last moment to embrace Mary briefly. "I'll make you proud," he promises earnestly. "You already do," she assures him, straightening his collar. "Be careful. Listen well." She watches from the doorway as Joshua joins the small group of hunters, his slight frame dwarfed by the men around him. Dakota acknowledges him with a hand on his shoulder, saying something that makes the boy stand taller. Then they move off, into the forest, disappearing among the snow-laden pines. The day unfolds in a flurry of special preparations. The winter dance is more than mere celebration. It marks the midpoint of the difficult season, a renewal of community bonds that strengthen against isolation and hardship. Mary finds herself drawn into increasingly complex arrangements, her initial outsider status largely forgotten as she works alongside Cherokee women. Grace follows Kimmy everywhere, the two girls now inseparable despite their different backgrounds. They help decorate the central gathering area with pine boughs and dried berries arranged in intricate patterns. Mary catches fragments of their conversation, a fluid blend of English and Cherokee that the children navigate with unconscious ease. Emma assists Galilani, the healer, preparing special herbal mixtures for the ceremony. The older woman has taken Emma under her wing, recognizing in her a natural aptitude for healing work. Today, they create bundles of fragrant plants to be cast into the ceremonial fire, symbols of ailments and hardships the community wishes to banish in the coming year. Mary herself helps with food preparation, a task that has become one of her regular contributions to village life. Her skill with preserving and preparing game has earned her a place among the cooking women who now freely share their own techniques in return. Today, they prepare a feast. Venison and rabbit, wild grains and preserved fruits, all in quantities that seem extravagant given their careful winter rationing. Special day, special food, Eunice explains when Mary questions the abundance. Remember, plenty in time of scarcity. Remind spirits we are grateful, deserving. As midday passes, Mary finds herself occasionally glancing toward the forest, watching for the hunting party's return. She tells herself it's natural concern for Joshua's first hunt, nothing more, though she knows her gaze lingers when seeking a particular tall figure among the returning men. Her relationship with Dakota remains difficult to define. He has become something beyond rescuer or host, a presence in their lives that feels increasingly essential. He teaches Joshua woodcraft and hunting. He answers Emma's endless questions about Cherokee history and customs with patient detail. He brings grace, small treasures from the forest, a perfectly preserved pine cone, an unusually shaped stone, a feather of striking color. And for Mary herself, he has become something unexpected, a confidant perhaps, someone with whom she can share concerns about their uncertain future without feeling judged or pressured toward decisions. Their conversations, often brief but resonant, have become anchors in her days. Yet there remains a careful distance between them, a boundary neither has attempted to cross. They are from different worlds temporarily intersecting. Any deeper connection would raise complications neither seems prepared to address. Aita finds Mary lost in these thoughts as she kneads dough for the evening bread. Your mind walks far from your hands, she observes wryly. Mary startles slightly, then smiles at the older woman who has become something of a mentor to her. Just wondering how Joshua fares on his first hunt. Ayita's knowing expression suggests she reads more than Mary intended to reveal. The boy is with good men. Dakota watches him as if he were his own. The observation sends an unexpected warmth through Mary's chest. He's been kind to all my children. Kindness is easy, Ayita says dismissively. What Dakota gives is more. Understanding, guidance, purpose. She studies Mary's face carefully. Things lost when your husband walked to the spirit world. Mary focuses intently on her dough, uncomfortable with Ayita's directness. We've been fortunate in our refuge here. All of you have been generous beyond expectation. Ayita makes a sound that might be amusement or exasperation. You speak around truth like a fox circles a trap. She leans closer, lowering her voice. When two rivers meet, they do not ask permission to join. They simply flow together, creating something new and stronger. Before Mary can respond to this cryptic observation, a shout rises from the village perimeter. The hunting party returns, earlier than expected. Mary wipes her hands and moves toward the commotion, heart quickening with concern at the unusual excitement in the voices. She sees Joshua first, running ahead of the men, his face flushed with cold and excitement. "Mother!" he calls, spotting her. "I got one, all by myself." Relief floods through Mary, followed quickly by pride as she realizes the cause for celebration. Behind Joshua, Dakota carries a large snowshoe hare, clearly the boy's prize, judging by his excitement. "It was perfect, Mother," Joshua exclaims, words tumbling over each other in his eagerness to share. "We tracked it through the pine grove. Dakota showed me how to see the signs. Broken twigs and disturbed snow. Then we waited so quietly behind fallen logs. When it appeared, I didn't even breathe. I remembered everything. Draw slowly, aim ahead of movement, release smoothly. Mary embraces him, his small body vibrating with accomplishment. "I'm so proud of you," she says sincerely. Over Joshua's head, her eyes meet Dakota's. He nods slightly, confirmation of her son's achievement. "A clean shot," he says. "One arrow, quick mercy." He honored the rabbit sacrifice with skill and respect. Joshua beams at this praise. "We're bringing it to the feast," he announces. "My first hunt will help feed the people." The significance of this moment isn't lost on Mary. This isn't merely a boy's first successful hunt. It's her son finding his place in this community, contributing in a meaningful way. He stands taller, speaks with new confidence. He belongs. As the hunting party disperses to prepare for evening celebrations, Dakota approaches Mary, still carrying Joshua's prize. "He has natural gifts," he says quietly. "Patience unusual in one so young, steady hands, good instincts." "His father would be proud," Mary responds, emotion thickening her voice. "As should his mother be," Dakota counters. "Such qualities reflect guidance from both parents." He hands her the hair, a symbolic gesture transferring her son's accomplishment to her care. Their fingers brush briefly in the exchange, a moment of contact that seems to linger even after he moves away to join the other hunters. Mary watches him go, Ayita's words echoing in her mind. When two rivers meet, they do not ask permission to join. She pushes the thought aside, focusing instead on preparing Joshua's rabbit for the feast, allowing him to assist with solemnity, befitting his new status. As day fades toward evening, the village transforms. Torches and bonfires push back against early darkness. Drum beats begin, tentative at first, then gaining confidence and complexity. People emerge from dwellings in their finest attire, deerskin garments adorned with beadwork and quills, special jewelry reserved for ceremonies, faces painted with symbolic designs. Mary helps her children prepare, all three excited in their different ways. Grace wears a small dress gifted by Kimmy's mother, her blonde hair braided and adorned with colored beads. Joshua proudly displays a hunting mark painted on his cheek, a privilege earned by his successful hunt. Emma, more reserved, nevertheless accepts Mary's suggestion of a ribbon woven through her practical braid. For herself, Mary has done little. Beyond washing her face and arranging her hair more carefully than usual, she has no ceremonial clothing, no special adornments for such occasions. Her practical frontier garments, mended and clean but well worn, mark her as an outsider, despite her weeks among the Cherokee. "You look too serious for celebration," Ayita comments, appearing at their door as they prepare to join the gathering. The older woman carries something draped over her arm, a garment of soft buckskin, dyed deep blue and decorated with intricate beadwork along the neckline and sleeves. "The women made this," she explains, offering it to Mary. "For you, for tonight." Mary stares in astonishment at the beautiful dress. "I can't possibly accept," she begins. "You can and will," Ayita interrupts firmly. "Many hands made this. To refuse would cause offense." Grace claps her hands in delight. "Oh, Mama, it's beautiful. Like a princess dress in stories." Even Emma looks impressed. "They must have been working on this for weeks," she observes, fingering the precise beadwork. Overwhelmed by the unexpected gift, Mary allows Ayita to help her don the dress over her simple undergarments. The buckskin feels buttery soft against her skin, the weight and drape unfamiliar but pleasing. It fits remarkably well for something made without measurements, another indication of how closely she has been observed by her hosts. "Now you look like woman, not just mother," Ayita declares with satisfaction, stepping back to assess the transformation. Mary blushes slightly at the directness of this comment, but cannot deny the garment makes her feel different, more connected to the celebration, more present in her own body. She has been so focused on survival, on her children's welfare, that she has forgotten herself as an individual, a woman with her own presence in the world. "Thank you," she says sincerely. "Please convey my gratitude to everyone who contributed." "Tell them yourself," Ayita suggests with a smile. "Tonight we celebrate together, not as different peoples, but as one community facing winter's challenges." Together, they join the growing circle around the central fires. Mary notices appreciative glances as they approach, shy smiles from the women who surely contributed to her gift. The children immediately scatter to find their friends, leaving Mary momentarily alone until Ayita guides her toward a group of women her own age. The evening unfolds in a sequence of dances, each with specific meaning and purpose. Elders explain traditions in a mixture of Cherokee and broken English, ensuring Mary understands the significance of each element. Some dances involve only men, others only women. Some tell stories through movement, hunts, historical events, spirit journeys. Others invite participation from all present, including children. Mary watches, entranced by the rhythmic precision, the connection between drummers and dancers, the way firelight transforms ordinary faces into something almost otherworldly. She particularly enjoys seeing her children's involvement. Grace following Kimmy's movements with intense concentration, Joshua joining a boys' dance that mimics hunting techniques, even Emma eventually persuaded to join a circle of young women her age. "Your children dance as if born to our rhythms," observes a voice beside her. Dakota has approached silently, standing nearby but not intrusive. Mary smiles, watching Grace spin with uninhibited joy between two Cherokee girls. Children adapt more easily than adults. They accept new experiences without the weight of preconception. "Unlike their mother?" Dakota queries, a hint of challenge in his tone. Mary turns toward him, surprised by his directness. "I've tried to keep an open mind." "Your mind, yes," he acknowledges. "But what of your heart?" The question hangs between them, laden with implications Mary has been carefully avoiding for weeks. Before she can formulate a response, the drum beat changes, signaling a new dance about to begin. "The Winter Crossing," Dakota explains, as if their previous exchange had not occurred. "It honors the journey through darkness toward returning light. All participate, children, adults, elders, even guests." He extends his hand, an unmistakable invitation. "Will you join?" Mary hesitates, acutely aware of curious eyes upon them. Accepting means more than simply participating in a dance. It symbolizes deeper integration into this community, public acknowledgement of bonds, forming beyond mere hospitality. "I don't know the steps," she demurs. "No one expects perfection," Dakota responds, "only willingness to try, to trust the circle will guide you." His hand remains extended, patient, waiting for her decision. Mary thinks of the journey that brought her here, the loss of Thomas, the abandonment by the wagon train, the rescue from certain death. Each step has required surrendering control, trusting in possibilities she couldn't foresee. She places her hand in his, a choice that feels both simple and momentous. Dakota leads her to join the forming circle. Dancers alternate male and female, creating a pattern around the fire. Mary finds herself between Dakota and an elder, whose name she knows as Sequoia. Across the circle, she glimpses her children, already in position with their friends. Emma catches her eye, a question in her expression that softens to approval as she notes her mother's place beside Dakota. The drums begin, establishing a heartbeat rhythm that seems to synchronize with Mary's own pulse. Dakota demonstrates the basic step pattern. 3 steps forward toward the fire, 2 back, a turn to the right, repeat. Simple enough in concept, but the timing requires attention to the subtle shifts in drum beats. Mary follows as best she can, initially stiff with self-consciousness. Gradually, however, the repetitive movement becomes almost meditative. She feels the collective energy of the circle, not just Cherokee tradition, but something more fundamental, more ancient. Humans gathering against winter's darkness, affirming community, celebrating survival. The tempo increases slowly. Steps become more elaborate. Dancers call responses to the drummer's calls. Mary stumbles occasionally, but finds her neighbors smoothly accommodating her mistakes, supporting her rhythm without judgment. The dance tells a story, Dakota explains during a turn that brings them momentarily closer. Each step forward represents risks taken in darkness. Each step back acknowledges caution needed for survival. The turns mark changes that cannot be avoided. Mary nods understanding, seeing deeper meaning in what had appeared simple movement. And the circle itself, she asks. The unbroken community, he answers, supporting each member through the crossing. As the dance continues, Mary surrenders more fully to its rhythm. The firelight, the drum beats, the unified movement of the circle, all combine to create a sense of belonging she hasn't experienced since Thomas's death. Here, in this unexpected place, with these people so different yet increasingly familiar, she feels anchored again. When the dance finally concludes, dancers raising joined hands in a final gesture of unity, Mary finds herself breathless but strangely exhilarated. Around her, faces shine with shared joy and purpose. Even the most reserved elders smile broadly, the difficult winter temporarily forgotten in celebration. Children are gathered for storytelling next. Settling near the fire as an elderly woman prepares to share winter tales. Mary's three find places among their friends, tired but happy. Mary herself moves toward the edge of the gathering, suddenly needing a moment of space to process the evening's emotions. She walks a short distance from the central fires, finding a quiet spot with a view of both the celebration and the star-filled sky above. The night air is bitterly cold, but her exertion from the dance and the quality of her new garment keep her comfortable enough for a brief respite. The stars seem closer on winter nights, Dakota observes, approaching quietly to stand beside her, as if heaven draws nearer when earth grows cold. Mary glances at him, noting how firelight and shadow play across the strong planes of his face. Do the Cherokee believe heaven watches over us? We believe the Great Spirit connects all living things, two-legged, four-legged, winged, rooted, all part of one great circle of life. He looks upward thoughtfully. Perhaps your heaven and our spirit world are not so different. Mary considers this. Her religious upbringing suggested clear divisions, Christian and heathen, saved and unsaved. Yet her experiences these past months have challenged such certainties. She has witnessed profound faith, moral clarity, and compassion among these people her ministers would have called godless. Perhaps not, she agrees softly. They stand in companionable silence, watching the distant celebration. Mary can see her children among the listeners, Grace leaning drowsily against Kimmy, Joshua alert despite obvious fatigue, Emma thoughtfully attentive to the storyteller's words. They have found peace here, Dakota observes, following her gaze. Yes, Mary acknowledges, more quickly and completely than I expected. And their mother? Mary turns to face him directly, knowing the question deserves honest consideration. I've found possibility, she says finally. When the wagon train left us, I thought everything was ending. Instead, I'm discovering that perhaps it was just beginning. Dakota studies her face, his expression unreadable in the dim light. Beginnings require courage, he says quietly, especially unexpected ones. The implication hangs between them. This conversation is no longer solely about her family's adaptation to Cherokee hospitality. It touches something more personal, more complicated. "Dakota," Mary begins hesitantly. "I don't know what future is possible here. Spring will come eventually. Decisions will need to be made. Today exists before tomorrow," he responds. "Winter, teaching patience, perhaps wisdom too." His philosophy of present-focused living both attracts and challenges Mary. She has spent months planning, worrying, calculating futures that constantly shift beyond her control. The idea of fully inhabiting the present moment feels both liberating and frightening. Before she can respond, a small voice calls from nearby. "Mama!" Grace approaches, rubbing tired eyes. "Kimmy fell asleep during the story. Her mother says we should all go to bed now." Mary smiles, extending her hand to her youngest. Then, "We shall, sweetheart. It's been a long day of celebration." Grace takes her hand, then surprises both adults by offering her other hand to Dakota. "Will you walk with us?" she asks simply. "I want to tell you about the spirit animals in the story." Dakota accepts the child's hand with grave courtesy. "I would be honored to hear your thoughts on spirit animals." Together, the three walk back toward the village center, Grace chattering sleepily between them. Mary is acutely aware of the picture they present, a family grouping that would have been unimaginable months ago. Yet it feels strangely natural, as if pieces long misaligned have found their proper arrangement. They collect Joshua and Emma, both fighting yawns despite protestations they aren't tired. The Wilson family makes their way toward their dwelling, Dakota accompanying them as if it's the most natural arrangement in the world. At their door, he bids them good night with formal politeness. "Sleep well. Tomorrow brings new snow, according to the clouds." The children respond with varying degrees of sleepy acknowledgement before disappearing inside. Mary lingers momentarily, suddenly reluctant to end the evening. "Thank you," she says, "for everything today. Joshua's first hunt, the explanation of the dances, all of it meant more than I can properly express." Dakota regards her steadily. "No gratitude needed between." He pauses, seemingly searching for the right word. "Friends?" Mary suggests, though the term feels inadequate. "Friends," he agrees, though something in his tone suggests he might have chosen differently. "Rest well, Mary Wilson." She watches him walk away, disappearing into the darkness between dwellings. Only then does she realize he has called her by her full name for the first time, an acknowledgement of her identity beyond the widow or the children's mother. Inside their dwelling, Mary finds her children already settling into their sleeping furs, too tired for their usual bedtime resistances. She tends the fire, ensuring it will last through the coldest hours of night, then prepares herself for sleep. As she removes the beautiful buckskin dress, folding it carefully, Mary reflects on the day's events. Joshua's first successful hunt, her participation in the ceremonial dance, the quiet conversation with Dakota beneath winter stars, small moments perhaps in the grand scheme of their journey, yet somehow defining. For the first time since leaving Springfield, Mary feels neither simply surviving nor postponing real life until some future destination. She feels present, engaged, alive to possibilities she never anticipated when they joined the wagon train. Months ago, outside, snow begins to fall again, silent and steady. Inside, Mary Wilson sleeps dreamlessly, her children safe beside her, tomorrow's concerns temporarily surrendered to the deep peace of belonging. February yields to March with reluctance, winter's grip loosening incrementally as days stretch longer and the sun climbs higher in pale blue skies. The first signs of thaw appear, icicles weeping along southern exposures, bare patches emerging on sun-warmed hillsides, birdsong returning to the forest canopy. Mary Wilson stands at the edge of the Cherokee village, watching a flock of geese trace their determined path northward, harbingers of the inevitable change of seasons. She has been dreading this moment, the undeniable arrival of spring, forcing decisions too long postponed. The temporary refuge of winter no longer provides shelter from the future. Choices must be made, paths chosen, lives altered by deliberate intent rather than desperate circumstance. Behind her in the village, her children move with the confident belonging of those who have found their place. Emma assists Galilani daily now, her knowledge of medicinal plants growing impressively under the healer's tutelage. Joshua hunts regularly with the men, his small bow claiming contributions to the community pot with increasing frequency. Grace speaks more Cherokee than English some days, her friendship with Kimmy having blossomed into something closer to sisterhood. And Mary herself, she has become integral to village life, her skills with preservation techniques, textile work, and wound treatment valued beyond mere courtesy to a guest. She moves among the Cherokee with the ease of familiarity, no longer an outsider but not quite fully integrated. She exists in the liminal space between worlds, connected to both, yet fully claimed by neither. The ice breaks on the river, Dakota observes, approaching from the village. The trading party prepares to depart at week's end. Mary nods, having heard the discussions. Each spring, Cherokee traders journey to distant settlements, exchanging furs and crafted goods for items the community cannot produce. Metal tools, certain fabrics, occasional luxuries like coffee or sugar. "Will you lead them?" she asks, though she already knows the answer. "As always," he confirms, 2 weeks to Fort Gibson, perhaps another week for trading, then the return journey. Mary stares at the distant horizon, where mountains still wear their winter mantles of snow. "The opportunity presents itself," she says quietly. They both understand the significance of this moment. The trading party offers Mary and her children safe escort to the nearest white settlement, and from there, potential to resume their journey west or return east as they might choose. It is the future delayed by winter now demanding its due consideration. "The children have found happiness here," Dakota says carefully, neither encouraging departure nor presuming permanence. "Yes," Mary agrees, "more than I dared hope when we were abandoned on the prairie." They stand in companionable silence, watching the geese disappear beyond the tree line. Months of shared experiences have created between them a comfort that requires few words, understanding conveyed through presence as much as conversation. Their relationship has evolved in subtle ways through the winter months. Mary can no longer pretend Dakota is merely her family's benefactor, nor can she deny the gradual warming between them that transcends cultural differences. They have not spoken directly of these developments, both wary of complications such acknowledgement might bring. "What does your heart tell you?" Dakota asks finally. Mary smiles faintly at the question. "My practical mind and my impractical heart have been arguing for weeks now." "And which speaks more wisely?" "That's just it," Mary sighs. "I don't know anymore. Once, I would have said the mind must always guide the heart. Now, she trails off, unable to articulate the profound shifts in her understanding of herself and the world. "Oregon remains in your thoughts," Dakota observes. Not a question, but a recognition of the dream that has shaped her journey. "It was Thomas's vision for our family," Mary acknowledges. "Land of our own, independence, opportunity. These things can be found in many places," Dakota suggests quietly. "Perhaps even here. The implication hangs between them, weighted with possibilities. Neither has previously voiced." Mary turns slightly, studying his profile against the spring sky, the face that has become as familiar to her as her own reflection, yet remains in some ways mysterious. Would the Cherokee accept a white family permanently among them? She asks directly. Truly accept, not merely tolerate. Dakota considers the question with characteristic thoroughness. Some would welcome, some would question, but you and your children have earned respect. The young ones especially are seen as part of our circle now. He pauses, then adds, Chief Adai would support your staying. Mary knows this is significant. Adai's influence carries substantial weight in tribal decisions. His son's friendship with Joshua has created bonds that extend to both families. And what of you, Dakota? Mary asks, gathering courage to address what has remained unspoken between them. What would you wish for us? He turns fully toward her now, his expression unguarded in rare vulnerability. I think you know what I would wish, he says simply. But such wishes must be freely chosen, not influenced by obligation or persuasion. Mary's heart quickens at his words, the closest acknowledgement yet of the attachment that has grown between them. No obligation exists between us, she says softly. You saved our lives, yes, but we have repaid that debt through contribution to your community. What remains is... She hesitates, searching for the right word. Possibility, Dakota supplies, echoing a term she once used to describe her feelings about their situation. Yes, Mary agrees. Unexpected possibility. They might have continued this tentative exploration, but voices from the village interrupt, children calling, duties demanding attention. The moment passes, but something has shifted between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that can no longer be ignored in decision-making. We will speak more before the trading party departs, Dakota says, but Mary... He rarely uses her given name, making it significant when he does. Consider not only what you owe Thomas's memory, but what you owe yourself and your children in the present. With that gentle challenge, he returns to the village, leaving Mary to her thoughts beneath the warming spring sun. The next days pass in a flurry of preparation for the trading expedition. Mary observes the activity with increasing anxiety, aware that her family's future hangs in the balance of decisions too long postponed. She watches her children, seeking guidance in their obvious contentment within the Cherokee community. She thinks of Thomas, wondering what he would advise if he could see how their circumstances have evolved. One evening, as they prepare for sleep in their small dwelling, Emma approaches the subject directly. You've been troubled, Mother. She observes. Is it because of the trading party leaving? Mary should not be surprised by her daughter's perception. Emma has always seen more than her age would suggest. Yes, she admits, we need to decide whether to go with them or stay longer. Or stay permanently, Emma suggests quietly. Mary looks up sharply. You've been considering this possibility? Emma nods, her expression serious beyond her years. We all have in different ways. Joshua talks of nothing but becoming a true hunter like Adahi's father. Grace and Kimi have made plans for gathering summer berries together. And you? Mary asks gently. What do you think about staying? Emma considers carefully before answering. I think Galilani has much more to teach me. I think we're safer here than trying to cross mountains with a small party. I think... She hesitates, then continues with determination. I think Father would want us to be where we can thrive, not just survive. Mary embraces her daughter, moved by the wisdom in her young heart. When did you become so insightful? I've watched you, Emma says simply. How you've grown stronger here. How you smile more. How you look at Dakota when you think no one notices. Mary pulls back, startled by this last observation. Emma, that's not... It's all right, Mother, Emma interrupts with unexpected maturity. Father would want you to find happiness again. We all would. Tears fill Mary's eyes, unexpected emotion welling from depths she has carefully contained. It's not that simple, she manages. There are complications, cultural differences, community acceptance, practical considerations. There are always complications, Emma responds with the straightforward clarity of youth. But there's also joy. We've found it here, haven't we? The question lingers in Mary's thoughts as she eventually settles her children for sleep. Have they found joy in this unexpected detour? Undeniably. Has she herself discovered healing and purpose among these people once considered foreign and threatening? Absolutely. Can she imagine building a future here with all its complexities and uncertainties? That question remains less easily answered. The trading party is scheduled to depart in 2 days. Mary knows she must reach decision before then, not just for herself, but for her children, whose lives will be profoundly shaped by her choice. The following morning brings unexpected developments. A rider arrives from the direction of Fort Gibson, travel-worn and bearing news that spreads quickly through the village. Mary learns the details from Ayita. The United States government has proposed new treaties affecting Cherokee lands, negotiations that will require Chief Adai's presence at the fort. Bad timing, Ayita explains grimly. Trading season short. Many must go now or lose opportunity. The arrival accelerates preparations. The trading party will depart tomorrow instead of the following day, combined with the diplomatic mission. Takoda will lead as planned, along with several other influential tribe members. Mary feels the pressure of forced decision, time collapsing around choices not yet fully formed. She seeks out Takoda, finding him preparing supplies for the journey. "I heard the news," she says without preamble. "You leave tomorrow." He nods, his expression grave. These treaty discussions come at critical time. What government offers now may determine our future here. Mary understands the implications. The Cherokee hold on their remaining lands grows, increasingly tenuous with each passing year, each new wave of white settlement. Will they force relocation again? "They always speak of relocation," Takoda says wearily. "Moving us west, always west, as if there is endless land beyond the horizon." He secures a bundle with practiced movements. But we resist, we adapt, we endure. His resilience in the face of ongoing injustice humbles Mary. Her own problems, significant, as they feel to her, pale beside the existential threats facing his entire community. "I haven't decided," she admits, returning to her immediate dilemma, about joining the trading party. Takoda pauses in his work, giving her his full attention. "The journey would be safe enough. Several women travel with us this year." "It's not about safety," Mary clarifies. "It's about..." She struggles to articulate the complex web of emotions and considerations that have occupied her thoughts. It's about where we truly belong now, where our future lies. Takoda sets aside his preparations, moving closer. "Mary Wilson," he says, quietly, "I cannot offer certainty. Our people face challenges that may uproot us again, as they have before. Staying with us means accepting that uncertainty." "Life offers no certainty anywhere," Mary responds. "We thought we had security in Springfield until Thomas fell ill. We thought we had direction with the wagon train until they abandoned us in the snow." Takoda nods acknowledgement of this truth. "Then what holds you back from decision?" Mary takes a deep breath, finally confronting the heart of her hesitation. "I'm afraid," she admits, "afraid of choosing wrong for my children, afraid of betraying Thomas's dream, afraid of..." She meets Takoda's gaze directly. "Afraid of what I feel for you, and what that means for all our lives." The admission hangs between them, unavoidable now that it has been spoken aloud. Takoda's expression softens, though he maintains a respectful distance. "Fear is natural when paths change direction," he says gently. "But consider this. Thomas dreamed of Oregon because he wanted security and opportunity for his family. Perhaps the form matters less than the substance of that dream." His insight penetrates Mary's confusion with unexpected clarity. Thomas had not been fixated on Oregon itself, but on what it represented, a place where their family could thrive, where their children could grow in safety and possibility. "I need to speak with my children," Mary says finally. "Truly listen to them, not just assume I know what's best. They have stakes in this decision as significant as my own." Dakota nods approval. Wise approach. Children see truths adults sometimes miss. "Will you wait for my answer before departing?" Mary asks. "Until dawn," he confirms. The trading party cannot delay longer without risking mountain passes. Mary returns to her dwelling, where she finds all three children engaged in their usual activities. Emma practicing her medicinal knowledge, Joshua crafting arrows, Grace drawing elaborate pictures on bark sheets. She watches them briefly from the doorway, struck by their contentment, their integration into a life so different from what she had envisioned for them. "Children," she says, drawing their attention. "We need to talk about something important." They gather around her, sensing the significance of the moment. Mary explains the situation clearly, the trading party's accelerated departure, the opportunity to leave with them toward white settlements, the alternative of remaining longer with the Cherokee, perhaps permanently. "I want to hear your true thoughts," she concludes. "Not what you think I want to hear, but what you genuinely feel is right for you." Grace speaks first with childish immediacy. "I want to stay with Kimmy. She's teaching me to make clay pots when it gets warmer." Joshua is equally decisive. "I belong here now," he declares with unusual confidence. "Adahi's father says I could become a true hunter by next winter if I keep practicing." Emma, as always, considers more carefully. "What about Oregon?" she asks. "Father's dream?" "Your father's dream was for us to have a secure future," Mary explains gently. "But perhaps that future doesn't have to be exactly where he imagined it." Emma nods slowly. "I think we've found something here that we might not find elsewhere," she observes. "Not just safety, but belonging." Her words echo Mary's own feelings with uncanny precision. These months among the Cherokee have provided more than mere shelter. From winter, they have offered community, purpose, healing. "Then you all wish to stay?" Mary confirms, wanting absolute clarity. Three heads nod with varying degrees of enthusiasm. "What about Dakota?" Emma asks carefully. "Will he be glad if we stay?" The directness of the question momentarily flusters Mary. "Dakota has been a good friend to our family," she says carefully. Grace giggles. "He looks at you like Mr. Sanders looked at Miss Lawson before they got married in Springfield." Mary feels color rise to her cheeks, unprepared for her youngest's observation. "Grace, that's not—" "It's all right, Mother," Joshua interrupts, unexpectedly. "Father would want you to be happy. He always said so." The simple statement breaks something open in Mary's heart, permission granted from an unexpected source, releasing her from the guilt that has shadowed her growing feelings for Dakota. "Then it's decided?" Emma asks, practical as always. Mary takes a deep breath, feeling certainty settle within her for the first time in months. "Yes," she confirms. "We'll stay, at least until we understand what these treaty negotiations might mean for the Cherokee." The children's excitement bubbles over in various ways. Grace spinning in joyful circles, Joshua immediately planning his next hunting expedition, Emma calmly listing the plants she hopes to study in the spring forest. Mary leaves them to their celebrations, needing to convey their decision. She finds Dakota still preparing for tomorrow's journey, now joined by other men organizing supplies. "May we speak privately?" she requests. He follows her to a quiet spot beyond the immediate activity, his expression questioning but patient. "We've decided to stay," Mary tells him directly. "The children and I, if the Cherokee will have us." Relief and pleasure suffuse his features, though he maintains his characteristic restraint. "The village will welcome this decision," he says. Formally, then adds in a softer tone, "As do I, Mary Wilson." There are still uncertainties, she acknowledges. These treaty negotiations could change everything. Life always carries uncertainty, Dakota responds. But it also offers joy to those willing to embrace possibility. He hesitates, then continues with careful deliberation. When I return from Fort Gibson, perhaps we might discuss additional possibilities. The implication is clear, sending warmth through Mary's chest despite the spring chill. I would welcome such discussions, she says softly. Their eyes meet in shared understanding, an agreement to explore what exists between them more openly. Upon his return, no declarations or promises, just acknowledgement of potential that deserves honest consideration. I depart at dawn, Dakota says. 3 weeks, perhaps 4, before returning. We will be here, Mary assures him, making this place more truly our home. Dakota reaches out slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wishes. When she doesn't, he takes her hand briefly in his, a simple touch that somehow communicates more than elaborate declarations might have done. Safe journey, Mary says as he releases her hand. Keep well until my return, he responds, the formal phrase carrying personal weight between them. Mary returns to her dwelling, to her excited children, to preparations for a future different from anything she could have imagined when their wagon wheel broke on the prairie months ago. Oregon may lie behind them now, an abandoned destination on a journey that has led somewhere unexpected, yet increasingly right. Dawn arrives with clear skies and promise of warming temperatures. The trading party and diplomatic delegation assemble. At the village edge, horses laden with furs and crafted goods for exchange. Mary and her children join other families bidding farewell to travelers. Dakota approaches them briefly amid the bustle of departure. He speaks quietly with each child, reminding Joshua to practice his bow technique daily, promising Emma a special medicinal herb from the fort's trading post, giving Grace a tiny carved turtle as a remembrance during his absence. To Mary, he says simply, "Until I return," his eyes conveying what propriety prevents him from expressing more openly before the community. "Until then," she responds, the brief phrase holding acknowledgement of all that remains to be explored between them. The travelers depart with minimal ceremony, disappearing into the forest toward distant negotiations and exchanges. Mary watches until Dakota's figure is no longer visible among the trees, then turns toward the village with newfound certainty. This place, these people, this life, unexpected gifts born from their greatest crisis. What began as mere survival has transformed into belonging. What started as temporary refuge has become home. "What shall we do today, Mama?" Grace asks, skipping beside her as they return to the village center. Mary smiles, embracing the present moment and the future it promises. "Today," she says, "we begin planting the garden that will feed us through next winter." Joshua looks up sharply, understanding the significance. "So we're really staying? For good?" "We're staying as long as this remains the right place for our family," Mary confirms. "We'll face whatever comes together just as we always have." Emma slips her hand into her mother's. "Father would be proud of us," she says quietly. Mary squeezes her daughter's hand, knowing the truth of this with sudden clarity. Thomas had wanted security and opportunity for his family, and against all odds, they had found both in the most unexpected of places. The geese continue their northern journey overhead. Spring advances inexorably across the landscape, and the Wilson family plants roots in soil they never expected to call their own. The path forward remains uncertain in many ways, but Mary faces it now with confidence born of survival and hope nurtured by unexpected love. Some journeys end where they began. Others reach their intended destination, but the most meaningful ones perhaps lead to places never imagined, destinations the heart recognizes even when maps and plans fail. For Mary Wilson and her children, abandoned by those who should have protected them, salvation came not in reaching Oregon, but in finding community among strangers, strength within themselves, and new beginnings where they least expected them. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.